It's DD on the spot.
Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone to please like and subscribe down below if you appreciate this content. We really enjoy it. Now, before I get to my guests here, also, I got to promote a previous band that we had on the podcast, Auditory Armory. For those of you who don't know, I'd definitely go and check out that podcast. They were a really great band to talk to, but I went to their concert over down here in Minneapolis over the past weekend. They performed at Poorhouse, and it was a great, great concert, and I highly recommend everyone go and check them out. And I have their t-shirt here. As you can see, Auditory Armory. You can buy them on their Facebook page. You can ask them for questions about how to purchase one. They'd be more than happy to give them to you. They're very cheap. I highly recommend you go and check them out. It's a great t-shirt. The design is awesome. And again, thanks to Lee Spears Management and Lee Spears Company for reaching out and setting me up with this stuff. I really, really appreciate it. And now, finally, we have Jeff Isaacs of the band Eden's Kiss. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory of what got you into music and what your inspirations were?
Well, let's see. I'm old as dirt. I'm 46. So I've recently got into music about 2 years ago, believe it or not. I started in September 2016. A very good friend of mine, Harls, she is in the band, formerly of a band called Tattermask. I don't know if you've ever heard of them before, but they were pretty big. And she's a phenomenal bass player. She's one of those bass players that like picks the thing up and she just owns the instrument, makes it do the work for her, and it comes to her so easily. And I made the decision that night, seeing them on stage, I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to do this. I love music. It's such a central part of my life. It is stupid for me not to at least try. So I got home, and that following day, I called up a little place called Woody's Music in Fort Mill, and I said, hey, what do you guys got for a starter kit? And they had a little Ibanez, Geo sound gear, 4-string piece of crap bass, and a little 10-watt amp, and I literally just hopped on YouTube and started doing some lessons, and that grew into a buddy of mine saying, hey, if you want to get good quickly, and you don't want to really do professional lessons, because I will say I've tried, and not a lot of people are bass-centric, if you will. There's a lot of guitar guys, but they don't really like bass players, tier. So I just said, you know what, screw it. And I bought this little program called Rocksmith. To this day, I still kind of use it as a little bit of a warm-up tool, but I started downloading tabs once I learned the tab system, and the rest is history, man. No less than an hour to 2 hours a day. I crank out practice, and my bandmates give me some really good tips. But music has been such a central part of my life that I can honestly say now that I make it, it's like a whole nother world. It's like you've kicked open Pandora's box and you found this world of delights, and it's just bottomless. It's really the only way I can describe it.
For those of the audience out there that don't know what it is, could you explain a little bit what Rocksmith is?
Sure. It's a program that I bought it for my PlayStation, and a lot of people try to compare it to, say, Guitar Hero or something along like that. Nothing could be farther from the truth. It literally takes you from the ground up on stringed instruments. For example, if you want to learn how to play guitar, you want to learn how to play bass, and for guitar, it even breaks it down to lead sections and rhythm sections. And what it basically does is it scrolls across the tabs at your skill level. So as you get better, the song becomes more and more complete until you get to the point where I'm at, where you really don't even see the tabs anymore unless you seriously screw up. So if you see tabs, you're like, oh, damn, I got to get cracking a little bit more. And the neat thing about it is you can download popular songs. Like, for example, I really wanted to kind of challenge myself recently because I've been having to add a lot more fills since we've gone from a 5-piece band to a 4-piece, sadly. So obviously that leaves a hole when the rhythm guitarist has to go on drums. This creates a situation in which a bass player really has to pick up that bottom and mid-end range to fill that gap. And I started practicing Dream Theater. And Johnny Mune, love the guy, but God damn it, man. He's like a genius, and trying to play that stuff is really challenging. But I'll honestly say, as a musician, if you want to get better, you have to do what you can't. Like, it's when you think that you can't that you must. That's the only way to grow. Yes, it's going to hurt. It's going to suck. Your fingers are going to be sore. But if you want something, you're going to make time for it, and you're going to make it work.
Mm-hmm. So what attracted you most to become a bass player as opposed to any other positions in the band? Was it just your familiarity with it, or did you figure that it was going to be easier than other instruments? What was the reasoning behind that?
Honestly, I never fell for that, oh, this is going to be easy, because, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's 4-string, 5-string, 6-string, however many strings your instrument has. It's still a stringed instrument. It still requires precision, and it still requires a dedication and a love of the craft. The one thing, though, it is the only instrument that not only produces a tone, but you can feel it, if that makes sense. It's like the bacon of a band. It wraps everything together, you know? And also, I'll be honest with you, it's because there's no glory in it. I'm not one of these guys that wants to be up front and all, rah, rah, rah. There's nothing wrong with that. It's part of rock music. It's part of metal. I love it. But I'm just not that guy. I'm just an old fat dude with a beard. And like for me, if I can play and it makes my band sound that much better because it's got that solid foundation of bass and butts are moving and heads are bobbing, I'm a happy camper. My goal is to get that one kid that's in the back, because I was that kid, that's awkward, that no one talks to, that maybe dresses a little different. If he's doing this, mission accomplished. I mean, it's really the only way you can look at it.
So what were your influences musically growing up?
Oh, God. My parents, believe it or not, started me off in music. I mean, unfortunately, I'm a product of the 70s, so that's when disco was, like, really big. And my parents, like, they started me off with their old stuff that they used to listen to. So I had a pretty big grounding in, like, the big band era stuff, like Tommy Dorsey and Sinatra, all that kind of stuff, you know, that really, like, 50s swagger type crap. But funny story. So I'm about 7 years old, right? And I'm screwing around on the radio at night when I'm not supposed to be. And I come across Wolfman Jack. Yes, I'm completely dating myself here, okay? And Wolfman Jack plays Queen, Another One Bites the Dust. And I'm just like, I'm totally getting into it. And, you know, and that turned into Maiden. And that turned into, you know, Ozzy. And that turned into just all that stuff in the 70s that was just really filthy bass driven and hard rock and hard driving guitars. And I was completely hooked. In the 80s, you know, this switched quickly over to metal. Of course, the big four. You had Anthrax, you had Metallica, you had you had Slayer, and you had, you know, Megadeth. And dude, I mean, oh my God, I would walk to school and wear out cassettes of, you know, Maiden Live and Master of Puppets. And I mean, my father was like vehemently like, no, you're not going to learn any of this crap music. And I was like, all right, whatever. But I'll be honest with you, that was part of my decision, was like, you know, no, screw this. I want to be able to play these songs that I've grown up with. In the 90s, it was more, you know, I didn't really get too much heavy into the grunge other than Alice in Chains. I was really a big fan of their heavy driving sound. A little bit of Nirvana, although for me personally, I'm not going to discount Nirvana's importance to music. But to me, the Foo Fighters are a fantastic band. And the fact that Dave Grohl got his start there, big deal. And then I was introduced to things like the Deftones. And I was completely hooked on that ambient, melodic type of a sound, you know, and my exploration started to go towards bands like Lacuna Coil, Evanescence, Nightwish, Camelot to a lesser extent. And that was the music that I really fell in love with. So when Eden's Kiss approached me, and, you know, our sound is kind of a melodic sound, oh man, I was just like, yeah, this is the band I want to be in. But yeah, definitely early influences would have been like, you know, Ozzy, Maiden, and then later on more of the big four.
So I know that you're a more recent member of the band Eden's Kiss, but based on conversations you've had with other band members, what would you say is the history of the band? How did they get started, and what led up to them where they are currently?
Well, Mike, who's our lead guitarist, he is phenomenal. I know I'm probably like tooting my own horn here, but a lot of bands, oh yeah, my guitar player is great. I mean, Mike is just one of those guys that's just like, he floors you with his speed. I've never seen anybody sweep pick as accurately as he does. And he plays with feel. You know what I'm saying? It's not mechanical. It's not rote. Like, you could really tell he's gotten into this and he's completely focused. He and my other band member, Jason, who used to be on Rhythm, they got together and decided they wanted to start making music because their chemistry was fantastic. And they had gone through a couple of different singers. Now, this is, of course, 10 years ago. This is back in 2007, 2008. And they found Amanda, who's our current lead singer. And her voice just, it's something else. It's like a combination of Amy Lee's, you know, vocal range and this operatic edge to it that's just, to me, really unique. And I love hearing her really belt it out. But the three of them got together, and they went through a few drummers, and they went through a lot of bass players, and things just kind of weren't gelling. you know? Like the sound was there, the music was there, but the feel, the chemistry wasn't there with the other members. So it kind of got shut down for a little while and then picked up, got shut down. They approached me in 2018, this year, like around, say, January. And they were like, hey, why don't you come down and jam with us real quick? And I was actually in the process of trying to form my own band at that time. And man, did I learn a lot about the music scene when I was doing that. Woo! But yeah, we sat down and we jammed, and they taught me a couple of the songs real quick, and it clicked. You know, it just absolutely clicked because Jason wrote all the songs, and he was explaining to me the feel and what he was looking for, and I apparently gave it to him, you know. And as we progressed, I started adding different fills and kind of changing things here and there to be a little bit more bottom heavy, if you will, to give the guitarists the freedom that they needed to really just kind of go nuts, you know, which to me, again, I think that's a bass player's primary job, is to free the front of the band. The drummer and the bass player got it. You guys have fun. We'll do the work, if that makes sense.
No, we kind of already touched on this a little bit more, but I always, the people that I love to interview most in bands are bass players and drummers, because I kind of call them the unsung heroes of the band. They don't really get as much recognition as they deserve to. But what would you say is the biggest misconception that the public in general has towards bass players?
That we're a bunch of fat, lazy guys. You know, that I hear that a lot. And I really can't stress it enough. A good bass player is doing his job. And if you don't know what that means, not only is he playing for the band, but he's helping with the gear. He's promoting. Because again, he's not really writing huge sections of music, and he's not having to push himself as hard. Again, not easier instrument, but not as hard, say, as guitar or vocals. Okay. So I have more free time once I do my practice regime, like, in our particular band with Eden's Kiss, you know, I'm in charge of the social networking, the promoting, merch, booking. I wear a lot of different hats, but I'm thankful to do it. You know, again, the biggest misconception is that lazy thing. And unfortunately, you know, that's just kind of like almost a meme at this point. You know, bass player can't get laid. Bass player never makes any money. And, you know, good bass players take those jokes in stride. We don't take them personally. We just kind of chuckle at them because we know the truth of it. Listen to any song, I don't care what genre you go with, and remove the bass. Tell me it's as good.
Absolutely.
I'll shut up.
Absolutely. That is one thing. Before I started even this podcast, I didn't really know that much about bands in particular. And once I started learning that fact, and I listened to all my favorite songs again, even when I'm working out or just doing random things, you take the bass out, that's usually the best part of the song, or it's just, especially the backbone of the song, it would sound completely different. So when you were starting out with Eden's Kiss, what would you say was your biggest difficulty adjusting to them as a band, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Jason and I didn't really get along at first. And here's the thing. He had been through 6 bass players that had tried out in maybe a 3 or 4 month period. So I understood his apprehension at first, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, and unfortunately, these are guys that did fit the stereotype. You know, they didn't bring an instrument. It wasn't freshly stringed. It wasn't clean. They didn't have any gear. You know, they're playing on strings that are a year and a half old because bass player strings are expensive. Dude, if you're going to do bass, just suck it up and pay $40 for a good set of NYXLs because you want to sound crisp and percussive. I came in with my work ethic, and, you know, I'm a vet. And on top of that, I've been working on cars for close to 30 years, and I'm a manager now. So I kind of have a work ethic that's really solid. Again, not trying to toot my own horn here. I'm just a worker bee. And when he said to me, okay, I need this, this, and this, and I gave it to him, I think he was a little bit taken aback by that. Like, he wasn't really sure how to deal with someone who's not so much a fantastically competent player, but somebody who says, okay, I know I suck, but I'm going to do what I need to do as far as my homework to not suck because I don't know your songs yet. And within inside of, I'd say, a month, I had pretty much the full catalog of their 10-song set down with a couple of sections that would give me trouble. They'd help me out. They'd work on it. I'd go home with homework. And now I can, you know, of course, we all make mistakes when we play a live set. There's not a musician alive that can say he doesn't. Although I will say that I saw Lindsey Sterling live, and how that woman can play her violin and pirouette like 100 miles an hour and not make a mistake is beyond me. That was like magic to watch. Mm-hmm. I don't make boo-boos like I used to, and when I do, I take them in stride as opposed to being hard on myself, which unfortunately I do have that character flaw that I'm very, very hard on myself. I hear and feel every missed note, and it stays with me for like a month.
Yep.
It's taken a long time for me to come to terms with the fact, did I put on a good show? Did the band get received well and properly by the audience? Okay, shut the hell up and be happy. But yeah, learning the songs and overcoming the bass player conception, if you will, was really the most difficult part, but that's way behind us now.
You brought up an interesting question that I haven't asked for a long, long time on this podcast, but when you're playing a show, do you judge it to be a success based on how you guys think you performed or how the crowd reacted to how you performed?
Success to me is a three-part thing. Did the crowd have fun? That's number one and first and foremost. Okay. If the crowd didn't have fun, you're not developing fans. If you're not developing fans, you're not coming back. Number two, did the venue owners enjoy the performance? Because let's face facts. A lot of people talk about support local music, and it's very important that we do. But the bands need to take into consideration that these people have rent to pay and they have a building to maintain. So we really have to keep them in mind. Did they have a good time? Do they want you to come back? And number three, the real measure of success, and this is going to sound cheesy as hell, but bear with me on this. I'll give you an example. We had a show at a small place, but it's like a legend. It's called Sweat or Somewhere Else Tavern in Greensboro. It was a very hastily put together show. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a lot of support or marketing done, so we didn't have a huge turnout. But we had the other bands that bought shirts from us, and we had 4 fans, like 4 people actually showed up to like, hey, what's this Heathen's Kiss thing about? Let's check it out. All 4 of them left with a t-shirt. Mm-hmm. Now, understand, that's not about the money. It's about we played well enough to where somebody said, man, I like this band so much, I want to wear their shirt. That says something. We all wear shirts, not just because we're trying to support our friends, but we buy merch because we feel like we want to support a band. If you're selling merch, you're getting fans. In a roundabout way, that's kind of like the least important thing, but the most important, because the fans are really why we do this,
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more with that. Now, when it comes to your guys' songs on Eden's Kiss, would you say lyrically that you guys like to explore a similar amount of themes, or do you guys like to mix it up when it comes to the lyrics of the songs?
There's a lot of love forlorn and love lost and, for lack of a better term, F you, you hurt me kind of a thing going on. But there's also, it balances the line between hard rock and melodic metal. So it kind of, it wavers back and forth, which I dig that. There are times, of course, as a bass player that let's get down to drop A and get filthy. But I'm ridiculous. Most bass players are. We're kind of a goofy bunch. But I would honestly say if we had a theme, it would be like a darker look into some of the screwed up things that happen when you're in love. And let's face facts. Most of us got into hard rock music because we were pissed off at an ex or somebody that had hurt us, and we wanted to hear something that was like, yeah. And, I love the fact that there have been a couple of people who have said, man, your song kind of helped me through a little bit of a rough time. And I'm like, yes, yes. If your music has an effect on someone, man, you really just have to take that as like the highest praise. You really do. If your music can help somebody through a tough time, hell, even save a life, which, I'm really big. I'm excited that we're doing a anti-suicide benefit show here in December. I'm really excited about that because it is a senseless thing. And we kind of go out of our way with our fans. If they come to us and they approach us, we want them to know that they literally are the most important thing.
I mean, that is so great. And again, I can't reiterate it more. I really appreciate what you guys do with that whole suicide awareness thing. Like I like saying the show again, you guys talk to someone, get help if you ever have any of those feelings. There's numbers that you can call, Absolutely. Look it up and talk to people.
I'll put it to you like this, and I'll pass along a little bit of wisdom that my old man gave me. Mm-hmm. And my old man was like the stereotypical Brooklyn, like rough dock worker kind of guy, yeah. But he always had these little nuggets of wisdom. Time is the only currency that you truly have. Mm-hmm. Spend it wisely.
Absolutely.
Spend it wisely.
Absolutely. So what really inspired you when you turned, like you said, you're a little bit older. What inspired you at such an old age to all of a sudden take up music? Was there a certain event, or was it just you just decided, hey, I really just want to do this?
I have been accused of having a midlife crisis. I have been accused of, oh, you just want to be in a band so like girls will, talk with you. To which I remind them, dude, I'm the bass player. That doesn't happen. Lies. No, honestly, man, I got a wild hair up my butt one day, and I was like, I am sick and tired of not being able to share in the experience of making music. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Like, I wanted to do it, and I knew that I was going to suck at it. And I mean, I'm overly critical of myself, so I still think I suck at it. But the more you play and the more songs become like familiar to you, it's almost like you're greeting an old friend and seeing him or her in a completely different light. I often say, when the muse calls, you shut the hell up and answer. And I mean, dude, she's a mean mistress, man. There's no love. My fingertips are all concrete now because I do pluck. I don't pick. Nothing against guys who do. I'm a traditionalist that way. And every time I learn a new song and I've mastered it, I'll see something else that's like, wait a minute, if I can do this, I can do that. So it's like this constant need to improve. It's this constant challenge within yourself now. It's not I don't believe music should be a competition between bands. I really think it should be something where bands support each other and you have more fun that way. You really do. Every band's got their own different unique sounds. Sometimes different bands can complement each other, sure. But there's no need to make it a competition. Unfortunately, there's too much of that in the music scene where it's, oh, you suck and I rule. No, dude, we make music together. Let's do this and give people fun. But yeah, as far as like that is concerned, the main draw for me was I want to become more familiar with my old friends, songs that I had grown up with. And like, I'll give you an example. When I learned how to play Run to the Hills, it was like a magical moment, because like I spent extra time learning the little solo that's in there. And I was like, yes, I can do this. It's been years, but I can finally do it. Because I mean, dude, Maiden's got such an iconic bass sound, It's just this real heavy, but it's technical, and I'm a big fan of technical music. I don't think you should be terribly sloppy. Yes, bass can get filthy, but you should try to keep it under control, because if it gets too sloppy, then it's just mud, and I think Steve Harris was like a master at that he could like make this heavy driven, almost on the edge of distorted sound, but keep it tight. Mm-hmm. So that's why that's why Maiden's one of my biggest influence, because I kind of look up to that guy. I
got to ask, because Iron Maiden is one of my favorite bands as well, and Run to the Hills is one of my favorite songs of all time. Was it extremely hard for you to learn that? Because for people who don't know, that is a very fast-paced sound, and Iron Maiden is known for being an incredibly fast band. Was that difficult for you?
The triplets took a long time for me to figure out, because again, I don't pick. Dude, honestly, nothing against pick players. I've tried. It feels just completely unnatural to me, but like just plucking away and yanking on the strings, it feels great. And I said to the first time I tried it, oh my God, it was a bloody awful mess. I mean, it was just like, why? And then I'm watching some video on YouTube where like some 12-year-old kid just picks up, a $2,000 Lakeland bass and just wails it out. And I was like, there's no way I'm letting that happen. So honestly, man, I probably played that song 50 times in a row until I got the mechanics of doing, using all three fingers instead of just trying to power through it with two. And that in and of itself has helped my playing become faster. But just learning the mechanics, learning the rhythm. I literally broke the song down section by section. Okay, this is how he does it. This is how he does it. This is how he does it. And sped it up and sped it up and sped it up until now it's like child's play. But man, if you're a musician and something is challenging you, the only thing you can do is you can either say screw it and give up, or you can recognize that for what it is. That is a ceiling you have to bust through, man. And if you're willing to bust through it, the rewards are great, and then there's going to be another one right behind it. Are you willing to keep pushing? I am. That's just for my own self.
And when it comes to performing live, one of the big questions I love to ask every musical guest that I have on here is, performing live, what is that thrill like for you? I mean, you get to perform in front of people, get a positive reaction out of it, no matter how many people are there. What is that feeling like for you when you're live on stage performing music and you just know that you're bringing joy to people?
Okay, so my first ever gig, funny story. I was actually part of a little jam band. We were doing covers. There's a really big production that goes on here in the city of Charlotte every year called The Masquerade. It's put on by a local production company called Mandyland Entertainment, and it's kind of like vampire gothy themed. It's really cool. Well, we were doing, I was literally 3 months into learning, and somebody said, hey, you need to go play bass for this band. And I was like, okay. Thankfully, the songs are very simple, so it didn't take me a very long time to learn them, really simple, just 4 chord progressions. Okay, I got this. And I practiced my butt off, dude. Well, I got on the stage. It was a very small stage, and I didn't realize the size that the show was going to be. There were 475 people in that crowd.
Wow.
To this day, I've never played a show bigger than that. So a lot of people say, oh man, you're kind of spoiled, you're going to expect that. I'm like, no, dude, I don't care if 2 people show up, I'm putting on a good show. That's what you're supposed to do. But dude, so like we go through the sound check, and it's the first time I'd ever heard my music through like the big PA system that's rattling all the walls and all the ashtrays are skitting around, and I was just like, yes. And I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. Like, you could see everybody's up there and they're all looking at me because I'm the relatively, I'm the weak link in the chain, and they're all, you okay, Jeff? You okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Once I started playing, honestly, everything just kind of fell away. And I can honestly say to you that there never has been, and I don't think there ever will be, a greater and more satisfying high than playing live music. It is, excuse me, just a second. My husky's getting a little annoyed with me because I'm ignoring him.
No problem.
But yeah, there's honestly, there's no words in the lexicon that can really do it any sort of justice. Like, and that's the truth. It's like, you want to say amazing, exhilarating, crazy. It's all this gamut of emotions. You're terrified. You're excited. You're happy. You can see people moving around. You're literally freaking out with every note you hit because what if I didn't hit that fret just right and it comes through weak? And you're literally like, I hope you don't have to edit language out. Is it cool to use language?
No worries. No worries.
Okay. So like literally the best way I can describe it is, yeah, fuck. But do that for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But like, and when you're done, you're sitting there analyzing in your head, okay, and you're getting all your gear off stage and you're still really fired up, and people that you've never met in your life are coming up to you going, wow, you guys were really fucking good. And you think back to the times that you've been at shows and you've walked up to strangers that you just met in a weird band you've never heard of, but you fell in love with their music and you had to tell them because it affected you so. So again, I see that as that success, But man, it is terrifying satisfaction, I guess is the only way you can really describe it.
Yeah. So when you're performing live, does time seem to speed up or does it seem to slow down? Or is it sort of a mixture?
For me, it goes like absolutely way too fast. Mm-hmm. Like, you're into the songs and you're doing your thing and it's over before you know it. And then you just want more. You're like, no, we can do another 30 minutes of music. No. Like, I absolutely love being up there. I hate to say it, but I mean, it's a complete ego thing. I'll admit to it. It's like you're up there, you're excited, you're at a little bit of a higher level. People are looking up to you and you're like, yeah, rock. But man, the best piece of advice I can give to people when that feeling hits you is remember this. You started down there. Mm-hmm. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget that you started looking up to someone else. And if that person was a douche to you, you're going to remember that. Never, ever forget the fans are why you do it. It's not money. It's not sales. It's not fame and fortune. You do it for the fans. And if you do your job right, everybody had a good damn time.
Absolutely. So does Eden's Kiss have a tradition? We like to ask bands that come on here if they have a tradition when it comes to before a show. Is there any traditions? Like we have a few bands in here that they all like to have a couple of drinks before, or they all like to stretch. Do you guys as a band have a certain tradition that you guys like to do before each show, or do you guys just kind of like to wing it when you get there?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you'd call it a tradition, but Jason and I are kind of like the workhorses of the band. And the reason for that is our lead singer, she owns a dog grooming business. That's her normal work. So she's constantly on the go. She can't really like load stuff up and all that kind of stuff. And, poor Mike, he lives like almost halfway across the state. So it takes him, some time to get where he needs to get. So Jason and I, we're kind of like, the roadies. And, usually we'll ride together and, we'll put it like he's got this really great, unique vocal sound. He's very falsetto in his singing. So it's kind of like a Bruce Dickinson, the Queensryche frontman kind of a thing. So we usually play some sort of ridiculous power metal and just sing along with it. Even though I sound like a dying manatee, he sounds really good. This is the reason I don't do vocals. But yeah, dude, like we always have a good time, like especially if we're doing something out of town. The last time we literally got through the entirety of Operation Mindcrime and halfway through Empire, and we were both hoarse by the time we got to the hotel. Not a good idea when you're a vocalist, but we had a great time. So, yeah, I guess you could say that's the one tradition we have, is that Jason and I kind of load everything up and, lots of your mom jokes. But as far as having a couple of drinks, I will say this. I am not a teetotaler by any stretch of the imagination. I don't care what anyone does, but I will say this for myself. If you're going to play, stay sober until after your set. Give your fans your 1,000% focus, because you get hammered and you think you sound good and you don't.
Absolutely.
Stay sober, kids.
So for those of you who haven't picked up on some subtle hints in this interview, he's coming to us from North Carolina. How would you describe the music scene from where you're from?
It took a pretty big hit over the last couple of years. There were some very iconic places like the Tremont that have shut down, Amos South End that shut down, although we have heard in the rumor mill that they are coming back in February. There was also a really big venue called the Chop Shop that shut down. So, excuse me. Smoke another one, Jeff. For a while there, the music scene was really suffering. There weren't a lot of venues that were willing to take the risk on a big show. I will give an absolute shout out to one of my favorite venues, which is two of them, actually. The Milestone, which everybody knows where the Milestone is. It's the oldest club left in America other than CBGB's before they shut down. And also to a smaller place called Keg and Q. Definitely going to give a shout out to Sweat as well. A lot of these smaller venues really stepped up to the plate, and they said, you know what, we're not going to let the music scene die. We're going to go ahead and fill that gap. And they have been fantastic. A lot of them didn't have, like, an example, Keg and Q had 4 pool tables in a small little area for a band to set up. Not a lot of room. You could fit maybe 20, 30 people in there before it became a shit show, for lack of a better term. Well, they literally, as a pool bar, removed 2 of their pool tables, pushed the other 2 way over into the corner to open their bar up for musicians. And they went from doing maybe 1 or 2 shows every 2 or 3 months to doing a show almost every weekend.
Wow.
Yeah. So when I tell you that the music scene in Charlotte is vibrant, alive, and well, I don't care what the rumor mill may say. I'm in it, and I'm here to tell you there's a lot of good bands out there. There's a lot of good music to be discovered in Charlotte. I can think of probably 10 bands off the top of my head that are absolutely fantastic. A couple of them pretty close to breaking out, man, because here in Charlotte, we give a lot of our heart to the craft. It's not about fame. It's not about fortune, none of that kind of stuff. It really is about, let's put on a great show and have a great time. And if the fans have a great reaction, then we see that as a success.
I couldn't agree more with that. So now we go to our favorite part of the podcast, or at least our audience favorite part of the podcast, the little questionnaire that we like to do here. It's sort of more of a getting to know you. I'll ask you 5 questions, and then we have the results that we'll tally up. And then once we reach, I think, podcast 100, I think we're closing in on 74, I think this one is. So we're getting there. Then I'll release the answers, and we'll see what our most popular answers are. So number 1, out of all the songs that have ever been written in the history of music, what is one song that you personally wish that you would come up with yourself?
That is a wild-ass question. Because I'm thinking subgenre, and my brain is going 1,000 miles an hour. If I'd have to say, something in the rock metal genre, a song that I wish that I would have been part of creating, it's a little bit of an obscure song. Are you familiar with the band Pussifer?
It sounds familiar.
Okay, it's just one of Tool's lead singer.
Yep.
One of his side projects. He wrote this unbelievably filthy song called Rev 22.20. I highly suggest you check it out. Like, that is the kind of song in the metal genre that literally makes you want to make 10,000 babies. So, yeah, like, I would have loved to have been part of that, because every person I know, when you mention that song, they're like, oh, yeah, that song is just so great. I would love to write a song that, like, that many people would be like, oh, man, that's just such an epic tune, It affects people.
So it's Rev 22.20?
By the band Pussifer.
Pussifer. I'm gonna actually give that a listen to tonight before I go to bed. So now for question number 2, out of all the artists that have ever lived, dead or alive, doesn't matter, you can pick either one. If you could perform live for one show with any artist, who would it be?
Stevie Ray Vaughan, hands down.
Yep.
The guy was a master. He was an absolute master of his craft. And I am a little bit of a blues fan. I've learned quite a few of his bass riffs, and man, I would absolutely love playing Pride and Joy with that man, because that would be like, oh my God, for a moment.
Absolutely. So for question number 3, out of all the venues on the planet, if you had your pick to play at any venue for one show, where would you perform?
On the entire planet?
Yep.
Prince Albert Hall, because man, if you play there, you have made it.
Yep.
And I just desperately want to go to Europe.
Yeah, mine is Slane Castle in Ireland.
Ah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one. Yeah,
absolutely.
So now we get to the real nitty-gritty of this whole podcast. What is a guilty pleasure song that you enjoy that most people would never guess that you like?
Oh, man. A guilty pleasure song. You're going to mock the shit out of me for this, but I don't care. I am not an emo kid by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I would classify myself like back in the 90s and 2000s. I was sort of a mix between a goth and an industrial ribbit head, because I like really got pulled towards that kind of music. But Helena by My Chemical Romance has this absolutely disgustingly rapid bass riff that I love. And the song itself is just so freaking catchy. You know, like I've never heard that song played and didn't see at least 10 women get up out of their seats and freak the living hell out, you know? But yeah, I absolutely love that song, and I don't care if you judge me
Hey,
for it.
we've heard so much of Backstreet Boys and Hanson. I mean, believe me, yours is not even the worst. Now for our last
I can't do those two.
Yeah. Now for our last question in the questionnaire. Again, I have to reiterate, you are not killing this person. They are not dead. I have to say this before I ask the question, because everyone always wonders that. But if you had an all-seeing power which allowed you to erase any artist, their entire music catalog from existence, everyone would forget who they were as a musician. All their songs would be erased from everyone's memory. They would still be alive. Let's just say instead of becoming a musician, they became a carpenter or any other profession. They'd still be alive. I have to, again, reiterate that because everyone is always concerned every time I ask that. But if you had that all-seeing power and you could use it on one artist, who would it be?
Scott Staff.
Scott Staff?
And let me just say right now, Alter Bridge is such a good band. They are what Creed should have been. Without this nonsense. The big arms nonsense thing. And let me preface that by saying it's because of his ego. Not so much because of the music, but the ego was horrible. You know, and to me, I don't care how good your music is, if you come off as that, that Kanye West kind of a I'm God here, I'm just done with you, man. I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to listen to your music because you've clearly forgotten the important part. You know what I'm saying? If you don't know that the fans are the reason you made it where you made it, then stop. Just stop. Go away, reset, rethink where you're at, and then come back to music humble. Because if you lose your humility, you're done.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So where can people find your guys' music? I know that you said you have a YouTube page. What is that YouTube page for Eden's Kiss?
It's literally Eden's Kiss Music. It's on YouTube, and I do apologize that we're not on Spotify and all that kind of stuff. Right now, we are literally in the process of, we have some stuff recorded, but we're mastering it. So, and we've kind of felt that instead of trying to rush something to to fore, we want it to be right. We want it to be a little bit more cleaned up and polished because, again, you don't give a product out there to the public unless it's worth to give, So we're hoping that by the end of this month, we'll actually have a website up where we'll have music that we can sell and, of course, links to our T-shirts and stickers and that sort of stuff. But, yeah, Eden's Kiss Music on YouTube. There's actually one live video of us performing at Keg and Q. And on my personal Facebook page, you can find – and I don't mind if you link people to that at all. And on our Eden's Kiss page on Facebook, there's also a couple of live videos where you can actually see us performing in some of the local venues. Our most recent show was at the Milestone, and, man, we had an absolute blast at that show. We had a great time. Nice.
I'll leave all links to all that stuff down below. But do you have any upcoming shows? I mean, you're our 9th guest from North Carolina, believe it or not, so we have a very popular fan base.
Quite a few. This coming September the 29th, which is a Friday, we're playing at Tommy's Pub, which is another great local venue. We've got another show at the Rabbit Hole on October the 19th. The big show that we're playing in a pretty short period of time on October the 6th is actually a show that I put together myself. Because again, I really feel like if you want music to be big, you need to put the work in. So a lot of times, if I see that there's like a 2 or 3 week gap in a calendar where nothing's really going on, I try to kind of target right the center of that and say, okay, nobody's going to miss this because everything else is kind of shut down. Let's keep the music going. So we're doing a show on October the 6th that I put together. It's called Devil's Night. It's kind of like North Carolina's music scene's official introduction into the month of spooky, because I'm a huge fan of Halloween. That's a great holiday. It's kind of my Christmas. And yeah, I know that's cliche, but whatever. But yeah, we're going to be there with some really fantastic bands. Fear Until Fury. We're going to be there with Stellar Circuits, which if you're a fan of A Perfect Circle or Crosses, which is kind of like Chino's side project from the Deftones, you will absolutely love Stellar Circuits. Definitely want to give them a shout out. And a North Carolina, almost a East Coast staple is Nightmare Sonata. They're kind of like a punk horror band. Great set, great energy. It's going to be a really good time. I think a lot of folks, we've got a lot of interest already generated on the Facebook event page. That place can hold 250 people, and it's looking like we're going to pack it out. So if you're in North Carolina, October the 6th, get out there and have some fun with us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll leave links down below to all that stuff for all the fans out there. Now, I like to ask these final 2 questions to every guest before we wrap it up on here. If someone were to walk up to you on the street and say, hey, I'm really starting to get into music, I really sort of want to take over and become, just learn more about music, or maybe learn how to play an instrument, what would be your best piece of advice to them in order for them to be successful?
Want it. Absolutely understand that if you're going to try to learn an instrument, whether that instrument may be your vocal cords or drums or bass or guitar or whatever it is that you've got a passion for, understand it's not going to be easy. You have to accept that challenge as a crucible that you're going to get through, because the rewards are so worth, And I always try to remind people that the difference between a master and a student is that the master has failed 1,000,000 times more than the student has. You're not going to get it in one day. Don't give up.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, if you could speak to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be your best piece of advice?
Don't join the army. No, honestly, the best piece of advice I could give to myself back then would literally have been, pick up an instrument, learn how to play it. Even if it doesn't take you anywhere, it's still a journey. Music really, to me, is a universal language, and man, there's nobody that doesn't understand it on this entire planet. And I'm going to pontificate here for just a second. There's a lot of hate in the world. There's a lot of division, unfortunately, with our current political nonsense. And I'm kind of an anarchist when it comes to all that, so I don't take sides. But I will say this: we are all human beings. Color, race, gender, none of that shit really matters. What does matter, though, is at the end of the day, there's 7 billion of us on this planet. Music is one of those things that kind of unites all of us. Use it for that force. Mm-hmm. If you bring happiness to people, you've done a good thing. Mm-hmm. You've done a good thing. So keep pushing and keep striving and keep trying to bring a little bit of sunshine to a dark world. Mm-hmm. There you have it.
Now, I would be absolutely remiss. My audience would hate me if I didn't ask, but have you ever been mistaken for Seth Rogen?
Me? Mistaken for a fat Jew? Never. No, actually, believe it or not, the funny thing about it is I am like Jewish by faith. That was I'm not really religious now, but that's how I was brought up. So yeah, I get that a lot. I do.
I was going to say,
oh, you're a fat, funny Jewish guy. You're like Seth Rogen. Thanks.
And then lastly, I got to ask, I saw on your Facebook page and you're wearing a Star Wars t-shirt now. What was your opinion on The Force Awakens and also The Last Jedi?
Okay, it's a Star Wars flick, so I'm going to go see it, because, I'm one of those rare old bastards that got to see A New Hope in the theater when it came out. You know what I'm saying? So I've grown up with Star Wars throughout my entire life. I understand where they wanted to go with this, but I'm a little upset, and yeah, I'm going to be a nerd fanboy here for a second. Canon means something. Mm-hmm. And I get you're going to tweak it, but it seems to me like they took everything about the Star Wars story and flushed it and tried to make it something that it was really never supposed to be. Yes. Star Wars was about a struggle, good versus evil, the hero's journey, the circle, okay? I didn't mind The Force Awakens. I thought it was a pretty decent flick. There were some things that I wasn't, too happy about. Mm-hmm. But, again, I'm a traditionalist, But when the Last Jedi came out, and I heard the interviews that Mark Hamill was giving, like, this isn't who Luke Skywalker is. I don't know who this character is they want me to be. Like, don't get me wrong. Cinematically, it's not a bad flick. But it seems like everything that you should have done in the last movie happened in this movie, and it left you with this, oh, okay, well, now the revolution is just going to keep going.
Yeah.
No, like the circle, the arc of the hero's story is completely gone. You have this fantastic, conflict between Finn and Captain Phasma. That's been resolved now. You have this fantastic conflict between, Luke trying to resist training Rey. Well, that's gone now. And now Luke is gone now. So we're expected to believe that with little to no training, Rey is now going to be a Master Jedi. When it took Luke, 3 movies to be able to really use the Force with any kind of aplomb. And again, nothing against the character. I mean, I actually like the character of Rey. She's aggressive. She's in your face. She's very much like a Jedi that maybe could go bad because there's a lot of anger in her. I'm still not really sure how to feel about Kylo Ren. I kind of been calling him Ben Swallow because of the whole shirtless scene. It was a little weird. Like, there was a lot of stuff in these 2 movies that were just a little cringy. Like him, using the Force and getting all kind of creepy, I'm too close to the girl at the club guy.
Yeah.
When they're doing the interrogation scene, it was a little weird. It just seems like they're trying to go, hey, here's a cow and it's got Star Wars teats. I'm going to milk the shit out of it.
That was the worst scene of the entire movie when he drank that. I was like, come on. I almost walked out of the theater right then and there.
Well, I think the problem is that they're trying to make Star Wars into the Marvel, here's some serious fighting and then here's a joke gag.
Yeah, their comedy, can we just say their comedy has been horrible for this new trilogy?
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, as much as I hate to say it, there's a lot of rhetoric online of, Star Wars has gone all feminine. I don't buy into that nonsense. I don't buy into the Mary Sue theories and all that kind of nonsense because let's face facts, dude. Star Wars is really, it used to be a thing primarily for, sweaty, big, fat guys that smell of cheese that hang out in comic books and breathe through their mouths and play magic. No, it's really for everyone, and it's grown a very broad audience, So you really need to be more inclusive. I'll give it that. But I think they're trying to make it a little too political, if that makes sense. It's a really fine line they're trying to skirt. And, I've heard some stuff about, like, there were some T-shirts that had come out that said, screw men, the Force is for girls. Listen, guys, if you want your movies to be successful, just a thought, you might not want to piss on all the 40 and 30-year-old something guys that are going out and buying the toys and buying the movies and taking their kids and like, oh my God, this was this great story I grew up with and I want you to be part of the new one. And it just none of it made sense.
That make up like 70% of your market buying, basically.
Gone.
Yeah.
And and unfortunately, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even go see Solo.
Yeah, me neither.
I didn't go see it because I a very good friend of mine went to go see it, and he's like even more of a Star Wars nerd than I am, which good luck. But he said he literally got up 30 minutes into that movie and walked out because it was so awful. I mean, dude, Han Solo is one of the reasons I became an anarchist because he was like, yeah, me first, and screw the government, and we're going to work together to do this stuff. And yes, eventually I'm a pretty good guy, but he was just that roguish guy. He was like after Vader, he's my second favorite character. Because I will admit that I'm a filthy Sith. But like, it just seems like they're trying to make every Star Wars character something they're not. If that makes sense, it's like you can't PC canon. It makes no sense. And, this is why I was telling a buddy of mine the other day, Mel Brooks movies in today's day and age wouldn't stand a chance. And that man was a comedic genius, and everybody was laughing at what he had to say. Today, oh my God, it would be a lynch mob.
I mean, he made that one movie that made fun of the Holocaust during the Holocaust, what it was happening, and he made that funny. I was like, that just shows how good of a guy that he was. But yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on the new Star Wars movies. I mean, they definitely, they just need to tone it down, just bring it back a little bit more to his roots. But the thing is, with Star Wars, like I said, I almost walked out of the theater. The moment for me was when he did that Yo Mama joke in the very beginning, when he was taunting, when Poe was taunting the guy on the thing. I literally just turned to my brother and I was like, we can leave this right now, right? I was like, there's no way that this is actually the movie. Like, they're trolling us. But yeah. So before we go into a huge tangent that takes up 10 hours, because I could literally talk Star Wars for 15 days straight.
You and me both. Don't get me started on 40K. It'll go all night.
Oh, absolutely. So again, you guys, Jeff Isaacs, Eden's Kiss, I highly recommend you go and check out their YouTube channel, and I'll link all their stuff down below. Jeff, we can't appreciate you more coming on the show. We really appreciate talking to musicians. It was really a pleasure for us. Are there any bands in the local area other than the ones that you listed that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap it up here?
Absolutely. There are several bands. I would suggest you check out Reason Define, A Light Divided, Venus Invictus. Oh my God. Wow, my mind's drawing a blank now. Wow, Death of August, Den of Wolves. I could go on and on and on, man. Fear Until Fury, Stellar Circuits. Oh my God. I already said Venus Invictus. I just really like them. They're really good because they're like hard melodic rock, but they also have some fun songs that are really awesome. Mm-hmm. And definitely, but also Something Clever. Also, and a lot of these bands, man, they're getting close to breaking out. I really think that these are names you're going to hear like on a much higher level into the regional thing. For example, I've got a lot of really good friends in Reason Define. They're a great band. They're completely manned, lack the term, by women. And let me tell you something. I will not listen to anyone tell me anything about the gimmick there, because every one of these girls, they bust their ass. They have one of the most phenomenal bass players in town. Definitely check them out. Their music is incredibly emotive and well written. Mm-hmm. It's catchy as hell. And I promise you, if you listen to anything that they put out, you will become a fan.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I highly recommend everyone go and check those bands out. And again, you guys, Jeff Isaacs, Eden's Kiss, go and check these guys out. Give them a listen to and see. Hey, you never know. You might find your next favorite band right here. So again, this is DD on the Spot. Ryan Johnson signing out. Have a great day, everyone.